Brought to you by...
Hello friends, welcome back to Embrace the Film, where today we are called back alongside the Losers Club to make our final descent beneath the streets of Derry, Maine, to confront the architect of our greatest fears and put an end to the reigning terror of the villainous clown known as Pennywise, once and for all. The evil resurfaces as Andy Muschietti reunites the losers to return to where it all began. 27 years after defeating Pennywise, he has reawakened to terrorize the town of Derry once more. Now adults, the losers have long since gone their separate ways, living unusually successful lives all across the country. But when kids begin to disappear again, Mike, the only member of the group who remained in Derry, begins to call the others home. Damaged by the experiences of their past, they must each conquer their deepest fears to put an end to Pennywise once and for all. Which also means placing themselves in the path of a clown who has become far more deadly. Featuring an ensemble cast of incredible talents, who each had no trouble embodying the same headspace as the children who preceded them in Chapter 1. With talents like James McAvoy and Jessica Chastain, this is not a surprise. But much to my surprise, Bill Hader brings an incredible performance to this film, breathing new life into a character that I felt was a little over the top the first time around, and adding a depth to him that most comedians aren't usually able to achieve. We see Isaiah Mustafa take the reins of Mike Hanlon here, coming a long way from his days as the chiseled Old Spice guy, valiantly gallivanting on the back of a white stallion. He delivers a strong performance that I felt brought a new perspective to the character, even though I wasn't too fond of the slightly broken and crazed nature that he has on display. For me, Mike has always felt like someone who remained a backbone to the group, who may have been terrified at his core, but tried his best to keep a cool and level head, to be strong for those who were being reintroduced to this nightmare. So you can see how seeing him in a new light would be strange to me. Each performance was approached with such care that I had no trouble believing that the kids of Chapter 1 had grown up into these experienced, though somewhat troubled adults, both physically and emotionally. They chose actors that almost looked to be related to their younger counterparts. The problem I have with the characters this time around centers around the fact that none of them feel as developed as when we saw them as kids. That could possibly be a reliance on the fact that we saw them and watched their characters develop as kids. So maybe the filmmakers figured we wouldn't want to watch that type of development unfold for a second time. However, I personally feel that more development was needed here. It's been 27 years for these characters after all, in between these two films. The losers would have become vastly different people over the course of that time, so I personally want to know more about who they've become. The person that we got the most development on was Richie. We were given a well-tuned character arc for our motor-mouth comedian that delved deeper into his backstory and reveals a key detail about his character that was missing from the first chapter. A detail that I don't remember if King brought to the forefront in the novel. Personally, I don't think it was in there at all. If anything, I remember it mostly as subtext. Here they chose to explore things deeper, which I thought was very cool, and can understand why it wouldn't have worked in the 90s. I ended up feeling more connected to him than any of the others throughout this first viewing. Now, there was always the chance that on repeat viewings, the film could open my eyes to details that place me in the shoes of other losers, which I personally hope is the case. I definitely want this film to have those hidden details, because on this first viewing, I really didn't see many. We also get a couple of well-placed cameos in this film, the first being the original actor who played young Ben Hanscom popping up during the introduction of the titular character, during a pitch meeting for his architecture firm. Followed up later by one of the first on-screen appearances in years from the master of the macabre himself, Stephen King. King pops up as the owner of a pawn shop that houses Bill's infamous bike. The Ben cameo was perfect in my eyes, and honestly could easily be missed by those who weren't paying attention. And I love that little detail. However, as much as I love seeing King on screen in this film, the scene was mostly played for laughs, and it feels like it stalled the movie for no real reason, other than to gain a laugh and give Bill a mode of transportation, given that silver is never really used for any real purpose after that. Which brings me to the fact that they cut Audra almost completely out of the film. I can't really say that I'm upset with this choice, since the moment we meet her, she is painted as a total, but it sort of takes away the reason for Bill to recover Silver in the first place. They also chose to have Bill spout a line to Stephen King that references a scene we see in the 90s miniseries, but that never pops up in either of these new films. They also chose to do away with many of the elements in Chapter 1 that I really loved, most notably the effects of Pennywise's influence over the town of Derry. In the first film, we were witness to the strange behavior of various adults within the town. This time around the block, we really don't even see any other adults outside of the main characters, barring Mr. Keene and Mrs. Kirsch. Much of the time, the town feels abandoned, as if the losers are the only ones there. The only times we ever see other people are during the reunion dinner and wandering the town fair. When we do see others, they always seem to be nothing more than puppets of our clown prince. The miniseries took the time to give us small moments, with Ben talking to the cab driver and the other kid down in the Barrens, or Richie interacting with the librarian. The most we get here is a minimal moment with Eddie and the gum-chewing pharmaceutical tech. I also felt that the opening moments of this movie raced by far more quickly than they should have. Probably to fast-track our characters to Derry. I understand, given that they took care of the childhood moments throughout Chapter 1, they couldn't use those to really pad out the time between Mike's phone calls to the losers. But I personally feel like they could have taken a little more time between each to let us see where they have all been all these years. This could have been a great place to better develop who they've become. Just saying. Once again, beneath the layers of makeup, a wandering gaze, and a grim smile, Bill Skarsgård delivers an incredible performance as Pennywise, increasing his intensity a bit and elevating himself from playfully creepy to maliciously vicious. I chalk this up to the fact that he was forced into a long slumber on an empty stomach, reawakening with a carnal and ravenous need to feed. While still given a few moments, like that under the bleachers, that required a more delicate hand, we see Pennywise as more in-your-face and animalistic than before, which is sort of saying something if you've seen Chapter 1. Though I feel like much of it can be chalked up to his attempts to terrorize his now adult targets, I did feel that this chapter chose a much stronger reliance on CGI, which is always discouraging to me personally, and I feel it hurt many of the more horrific moments of the film. But that is just a personal preference, and doesn't keep the film from being a dark and horrific depiction of a nightmarish subject. The film features many sequences stripped straight out of the pages of King's novel, bringing this adaptation much closer to its source material than the 90s version, and making it possibly one of the most accurate adaptations that I've ever personally seen. The opening moments feature a well-updated and memorable moment from the novel that brings us Adrian Mellon and his lover, brutally attacked by a gang of intolerant hooligans before the emergence of the clown from beneath the bridge, far outside the fair, which was sorely missed from the original miniseries, alongside Richie's encounter with the ominous Paul Bunyan statue at the center of town, even going so far as to include the infamous ritual of Chud, which I was personally very excited to see. I very much love the direction that they chose to take for the finale of the film and Pennywise's true form, basically making him the deadlights themselves, a partially amorphous entity which manifests the things that attack the losers, even going so far as to show a strange ethereal tendril stretching from its orbs and into the back of the clown's head, essentially showing us that the things we fear are used as mere puppets to something far more unfathomable. This is a far more Lovecraftian concept that I felt brought this film to where I personally wanted it to be. Though I do wish the creature that the losers were forced to face off against was less of an 8-legged clown and more of a shapeless mass amalgamated from the many monstrous forms that it has taken to create a towering horror from the cosmic depths. Something closer to this rendition. This finale was the thing most people were worried about when it came to adapting this film again. Though I probably would have done things differently, I felt that their choice with the deadlights made the final manifestation of it acceptable. Overall, I enjoyed this film for what it was, just not as much as I wanted to. Much like part 2 of the miniseries, this one just felt like it fell short. I think Chris Stuckmann said it the best in his review of the film, which you can find linked down below. This could be simply a matter of perception. Viewing the horrors alongside a group of kids grounds you in their experience, making the ordeal that much more horrific, while facing it as adults will inherently make this less astounding, due to the nature of growing up and shedding the terrors of childhood. It can't be understated that this is a strong follow-up to Chapter 1, and as close to an adaptation as we may ever get. The only way I think this could get closer would be for someone like Netflix to gain the rights and produce a long-form television series that recounts the events of the novel page by page. Shout out to True Horror Fanatic for dropping that idea down in the comments of my miniseries review. This film is a true adult nightmare that drudges up the terrors from deep in the past and thrusts us back to face our demons one final time, and takes great care in doing so. Which is why I'm giving it Chapter 2 a B+. Friends, thank you as always for taking the time to check out this video and for putting up with my sickly sore voice this week. I hope you enjoyed spiraling down the drain with me and delving into these adaptations of one of my favorite King novels. Stay tuned for more videos here on ETF. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you are enjoying the content so far. And as always, thanks for watching.